Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Matty B. Got another off-season show planned for you. Going to go ahead and go through pretty much the quick hitters, we'll say. First things first, I keep getting a lot of people reaching out about EA college football. They had Summer Game Fest, I think this past weekend, and no new news, which I was surprised because I thought this had been a perfect time for them to really release some gameplay that I've been excited about. And I haven't seen much on Madden either. They do seem like they're giving out private copies to journalists that all say like, hey, it's a totally different feel than Madden. And it's like almost word for word what people are putting in their articles, which makes me wonder if they're like, as part of the press kit, if they're like, hey, you have to write this in your article, and then we'll send you a copy. Because some people did put out like little tweets of like the menus and stuff, and you could see like some of the team ratings and stuff. Like they had Michigan's offense way higher than I thought, and they had the defense lower. Like I thought Michigan's defense should be like a 98 or 99, and then the offense should be like what, a 70, 75. Like you have no idea with the new quarterback, and basically, I know Michigan has a bunch of studs coming back on offense. So maybe like in the 80s, but like the discrepancy should have been a lot higher, I think. Almost kind of like they had for Iowa, which I think they had Iowa's defense is better than Michigan. I'm like, really? I mean, I guess they carried the offense last year, but one defense won the national championship with what everyone considered a poor offense. But who knows? Well, I guess we'll get those final ratings. The other one that stuck out, I think Clemson's defense was better than Michigan's, and I was like, why? They didn't even do good in the ACC last year. And Michigan has like a ton of defensive guys coming back. If everyone was gone in the pros, I wouldn't even have thought anything of it.
They must have forgot that Venables is at Oklahoma now.
That's what I was thinking too. Like, yo, you guys do know that Clemson lost their defensive coach, and then since then, they've fallen off the map. Like, there's a direct correlation with him leaving and Clemson going down. And they had it seem like Clemson was going to be number one in the ACC this year. And I don't really see that myself. Like, I don't see Florida State having as big a drop-off as what people said. Similar to Michigan, like, yeah, new quarterback, right? Maybe they have some growing pains, but, like, when you have some of the foundation in place with guys winning, that means a lot. So, that's where I'm at. I was disappointed that they didn't have any major announcements, considering this is usually the time that the video game stuff put out. I know PlayStation had theirs like a month ago or at the end of May, and they didn't have anything, so I was really hopeful that Xbox would have a showcase for it, and they didn't. So we'll see, because it's only, a month away?
Yep.
Like a legit month away. And it's kind of alarming that it's like, hey, here's like 100 games launching soon. Here's a bunch of trailers and like gameplay, and it's like EA College Football. Nah, son. We're going to send it out, and you can see little bits and pieces on tweets from rando journalists that will probably lose their credentials over those tweets. But we'll see. I still have high hopes, because some people did say that it was a test version. They didn't have a lot of menus and stuff to go through. And that was a positive, because that was one of the things that I've been worried about. A bunch of online ads and crap that you have to go through and just click, and it's like 20 minutes to get into a game, and you're like, why? Because not having it portable on the Steam Deck or on the Switch, where you can just pause the game and then pick up anywhere you are, that's the one thing that I'm glad the Xbox added. But you still can't just pick up your Xbox and go play your game somewhere else. Like, let me just lug this into the bathroom. I'll go take a dump.
Just leave the door open.
Yeah, you're like, well, you better not be bringing the Xbox in there. Like, I gotta finish my game. I'm in the fourth quarter. I don't know what's gonna happen. See, if you have the Switch, you can do that. But that's the number one thing that I had feedback on. But I do have a thing to say. I did make a mistake. Like I've said at the end of the show last week, I think I've been consolidating a lot of our online presence, and for whatever reason, the emails stopped forwarding. So if you've tried to send me a comment, it was fixed last week. But I've been testing the newsletter out, and I'm like, why isn't the newsletter sending to the official email? And that's why, because something got messed up where it wasn't redirecting properly. So the emails just never went anywhere, I guess. I think you might have got a message saying that it couldn't be fulfilled. So if you send an email, send it back to contact@southboundsports.com, and we will get back to you. It's back up and working. And you can go to leahymedia.com and sign up for the newsletter. It is live. I've just been sending the episode each week. Still working on formatting, trying to get it up. But if you want the podcast delivered to your email, if for whatever reason you want to listen to it in your browser, that's probably the best way to get the new episodes. I've been sending the email as soon as I post it. And then make sure you subscribe on like Spotify or even on YouTube. If you'd rather watch the episodes on YouTube, they've been uploading, like I said, a day after the live show. You can always catch the live show if you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. We have had a couple new subscribers, so thanks for joining. And if there's anything you want us to talk about, let us know, because it is the off season. It's an open book for me, but I want to make sure I didn't forget to say that. Anything you want to talk about that, Matt?
No, I mean, it's an ongoing process, and we just appreciate the support and continuing to tune in as we're making improvements.
Yeah, the numbers are great. And they are like, Spotify's new system, they use that new like podcast tracking thing where people actually have to listen to the show for like long periods of time for it to even count as a download. And I'm like, all right, let's see how many people are just hate listening. And there are a lot of you. No wonder I get so many negative comments. But let's see. NBA stuff. The Celtics 2-0. Porzingis has a rare injury, which seems like it's something where you would think that the Boston Celtics could win the championship. They're by far the best team. I wanted to talk about this a little bit because of all the gambling stuff that's been going on. Before the final series, there was a big push by the media that was really talking about how the Mavs should be the favorites and all this extra stuff, blah, blah, blah. When you had a team in the Celtics that had by far the best record. And I even went back and looked because I thought, after we talked about it on the show last week, I thought, did I get the stats right? Because it seems insane that even the pre-show, everyone's picking the Mavs. And I'm like, the game's in Boston. Why would you be picking against the league leaders with Porzingis back? And of course, Porzingis came back and did a ton of damage that first game. Celtics win the first two. And then after the game, a lot of the commentators were like, oh yeah, we were really wrong so far about the series. We thought the Mavs would really wipe the floor clean with these guys. I'm like, the Mavs are a 5 seed. They weren't even that good going in like the middle of the year. They had to make some moves to even become decent. So I wonder if the media now puts out these false narratives to control the gambling lines. Because they said, I saw research where they said that like almost 80 to 90% of people were putting money on the Mavs. Has to be 100% related to the media, right? A normal guy would look at the records and say, well, Boston's by far the better team. Why would I bet on the Mavs? But then the public, for whatever reason, went all in on the Mavs. And I've been saying the same thing with NFL when ESPN started having ESPN Bet or whatever it is. Right on there if you go to their website. Oh, you know you can bet on the game too while you're here. And they control the media rights, right? So they own most of the broadcasting for all these leagues, especially the NBA. What if they know they're like, well, we need some idiots to bet on the Mavs. We can really take a killing here. If we really think the Celtics are better, we put the lines like the line for the next game is Mavericks -2.5. They lost both the first two games by like double digits. The first one's like a blowout completely. So you could bet money line on the Celtics at 120. Porzingis has this rare injury where his ankle comes out of joint or something like that. Weird, right? Random. That could be like a snake bitten thing. The Mavericks almost have to win this next game. Because if they lose, they're not coming back from an 0-3 hole against the Celtics. The Celtics are too good. Celtics have only lost 2 games this playoffs, by the way. So there's a ton of pressure on the Mavs. And even when the Celtics, like, their backups are hitting shots in their face. So, like, the Celtics last game had the worst game possible where they didn't hit any threes. Why would the Mavs be favored? The Celtics aren't going to have another poor shooting day like that, and they still won by 10 or whatever this final score was. So, in my offseason conspiracy, I wonder how much we're going to start to see this where underdogs start getting talked up by the media to swing these betting lines to where it's like, all right, here we go. Everyone in the public's betting on the Mavs. Not in a blink of an eye, they're down 0-2. So how many people are just depressed for an entire week? Because they have to wait, right? You bet on the series. You could hedge your bets by betting on the Celtics this game. But then you're like, how if the Mavs win, though? What if they do win? Maybe it will be interesting. I don't know. Maybe next week we'll be talking about like getting close to a Game 7. I don't know what the schedule's like. I know they play tomorrow. But tomorrow could basically just be the ender. Go up 3-0. Even if they lose Game 4, they go back to Boston. Close it out. Porzingis is injured. I think Doncic's injured. For the Mavs, they said he was like all doped up last game. That's what you want to hear by your best guy. Like, yeah, they gave me a bunch of painkillers. I couldn't really feel what was going on. But I don't know. I'm just wondering. I have been doing the math, Matt. It seems like it's a number 2 for me. The Braves have won 2 World Series in my lifetime. Michigan's won 2 championships in my lifetime. It's time for the Celtics to win 2 championships in my lifetime. And here's something else stranger, Matt. I've talked about this before. In 1995, the Braves won the World Series. 2 years later, Michigan won the World Series, right? In 97. So in 2021, the Braves won the World Series. 2 years later, 2023, Michigan won the national championship. So now the Boston has to just win this year to get to the number 2 to even things up. Because I know their championship is weird, is in the middle with Ray Allen and Paul Pierce. Which Paul Pierce, bro, he's looking bad. He's looking like, I don't know if you watch a game, but he's like the old guy in the velour jumpsuit now that just looks like he put on a ton of weight and he's just wearing like a gold chain. And I thought, like, I should give my dad a chain like that. Just as Big Papa, he had in a velour jumpsuit he just wears around. Because why not? He's in with Shaq, of all people, just him and Shaq. And it's like, they're giant compared to everyone else around them. So it just looks like these 2 giant dudes. And then a bunch of other like normal sized people. It was hilarious. They kept showing him during the game. And Paul Pierce kept standing up. I was like, easy, buddy. You don't want to have a heart attack during a game like that. I was waiting for them to bring his wheelchair back to get him out of there safely. But I feel bad because, like, I've said it before. I think athletes go through a thing where you're working out, and then all of a sudden it stops. I know I went through that. And you're like, well, I don't need to change my eating habits, right, bro? Or I don't need to keep working out. I don't need to work out anymore. And then slowly over time, like, you're not working out as much as you think. Even if you are working out, you're definitely not working out as hard as playing upper sports. So I've seen a lot where people that don't do any sports training or whatever their entire lives, they don't have the jump in like just mass that I think other ex-athletes go through. Where they get, if you play sports at a high level, college or above, I think it's the longer you play, the harder it hits. Unless you're Tom Brady, because then like you get divorced and you're like, I can't eat this crap. I can't be looking fat. I just got divorced. Like, are you insane? He has appearances to uphold. He can't go down that path. Another random dude, Paul Pierce, like he has nothing to lose. So why does he care if he gets fat? T.O. stays in shape because he thinks he's going to play. He always comments like, yeah, they're blackballing me. I could play right now. And I do wish they would bring him back. Some teams have poor receivers, and you know it's just a locker room thing. Because it's like, that guy's pretty much a headache. We don't want that. We don't want that around our team. But that's my NBA conspiracy right now. I really want the Celtics to win. I'm riding high. I got a Michigan National Championship this year. I figured maybe we'll see another one with the Braves this year, but the Braves have been going down. And so now I need the Celtics to kind of come through. They can't choke away the best team in the league up 2-0 in the finals. They can't. I think it would tarnish the legacy so bad. But maybe I'm wrong. Let's see what else. Anything you want to talk about for the NBA?
I just think maybe you are onto something as far as the betting aspect, because the more, like, every other commercial is either DraftKings or FanDuel or any of that stuff. I think you almost have to be naive a little bit to think that there's not a hand in play with that.
I saw someone. I should have wrote this down, what the hell I was doing. I was somewhere, and someone was like, they were making a FanDuel bet. And the guy they were, like, talking with was like, oh, yeah, I'm, like, an expert. I'm a pro. And I'm like, bro, you're not a pro. Like, you wouldn't be here at this random event that I'm at if you were a millionaire, buddy. Look around. But he's, like, giving this other guy advice. And he was like, Dad, take the whatever. I forget it. We were watching college baseball. He's like, oh, yeah, you should do the other team. And, of course, if the guy would have stuck to his guns and not listened to this other jabroni, he would have won the bet. I forget what it was. And he just looked like he was defeated. And I'm like, why you listen to this guy? This guy's clearly lying to you. Like, he has nothing to do with it. But then I'm thinking, this guy's taking advice from some random guy. It's very easy for him to rather take advice from ESPN, even if ESPN's playing dirty. Like, they're never going to flat out come out and say, oh, yeah, you should bet on this. But like I said, for the Celtics final, I've never seen a team like the Mavs that should have been a clear underdog. There was no metric that had them above the Celtics this year. The Celtics have been that good. That's why I haven't talked about them, because I've been afraid an injury like Porzingis is going to even things out. But the Celtics have been so good, and the NBA is usually pretty predictable. I've talked about it before. Like when Golden State was making their run, they were clearly the best team. If you bet against them, you were a pure idiot. When LeBron put together his super teams and he was winning, if you bet against them, you're an idiot. Like, it was only a couple random years where teams weren't really lined up, where you got like a Denver last year, I think, and then like Milwaukee won it randomly. And then even the Celtics took Drew Holiday from that Milwaukee team, so they even have a guy that's won a championship, added it to their core of players, and I think that's why they're so good this year. And everyone's like, nope. We have a feeling the Mavs are going to win. And the only way you're going to say that is if you're trying to sway the public. And the public bought it hook, line, and sinker. There's no other way. Like I said, you can say like, oh, yeah, someone was saying like, oh, they have Kyrie Irving. He won a championship just like Drew Holiday. And then he fell off the map. Like the Celtics, he ran out of the Celtics town, didn't do crap there, stuck with the Nets. He was like a weird head case guy. He went to the Mavs. He hasn't shown up at all. They've shut him down. So what did the Mavs have? Like I still haven't seen anything from the Mavs where it's like, even with Porzingis doesn't play, I'm like, Porzingis was just pouring salt in the wound, buddy, when he was out there that first game. They couldn't stop him. He was unbelievable. He could just stand out there and shoot threes, and like they would have to put someone on him. Like, I still don't know. Like, that's the first one, and I've seen it with some football games where a lot of people talk up like a team like the Jets. And it's just made me curious, like, why? Why are we randomly talking up the Jets? Or the Browns? Like, it's always a lovable loser that ESPN's all in on, and then you see that a bunch of people bet on them. And ESPN has to just be collecting that cash with ESPN Bet. They're laughing at the bank. I'm like, oh, those people bet on the Mavs? What a bunch of idiots. Like, it's great for us. That's why I would never like you have to just look at the stats, because I've talked about doing it for fantasy football, and I'll break it down again this year when we do our fantasy football stuff. A lot of times I just cover up the names and the teams and just look right at the stats. And that's how I've been able to win. Some guys you kind of keep around because you're like, oh, yeah, I definitely like David Johnson. He's awesome. And he's won you a championship, or like Eckler won me one. So I keep him around, even though like last year he ended up sucking. So I think I had to bench him a few times or play him in my flex anyway. And it's like, you got to be able to detach yourself. Same with gambling. I know people only bet on their favorite team. I'm like, what if your favorite team is like the Pirates? You're just broke. I mean, you've seen it. Some guys only draft like Steelers. Like taking the second tight end from the Steelers. Like, guy, he had 5 catches last year. What the hell? You're drafting him? It's like insane. I don't know. I sound like a crazy conspiracy theorist. But too many coincidences, I think. And I mean, it's already been proven that the NBA had refs betting on the games, and they kind of just brush it under the rug. Where it's like, oh yeah, he was fixing them. But we can't make sure that people know that, right? Because then they definitely wouldn't bet on the games if they think it's fixed. And someone said, like, well, the NBA is... I talked to someone, and they were telling me they're a big basketball fan. And I was saying about, like, how I have a feeling like the NBA now could be even more rigged with these, like, small bets, like you were saying. Like the daily bets, where a guy just randomly doesn't play his full minutes. You don't know that at home, that he's not going to play. People have been complaining about guys just randomly getting scratched the day of the game. And so now ESPN's putting in, or not ESPN, the NBA is putting in some fixes for that. But I almost wonder what if they just did a minute limit? The person sitting at home, they wouldn't know. Like you pick, your daily bet is like, all right, I'm going to get bet that LeBron has 30 points today. Oh, wait, LeBron only played 12 minutes? What the heck? Oh, yeah, that was a light day for him. Sorry, you lost your bet. Like, they know the bet's coming in. LeBron tells them, hey, I need a rest day coming up. They're like, oh, you need to rest Thursday, buddy. A lot of bets coming in that day. They don't tell him that, so he doesn't know. He's kind of like oblivious anyway. So they're just like, go ahead. You rest on Thursday. But you can't tell me they're big business, that they don't have some guy connected to it that's doing it. Just like the Otani stuff in the MLB. I'll blame it on the interpreter, buddy. Then they just kicked another guy out, lifetime ban. We joked about him only winning like 4% of his bets or whatever. Insane. How can you be that bad? But they knew that he was doing it. So maybe they fixed it or something. I don't know. That's the one thing that I would like to see more transparency. Like if they're going to do the finals or whatever you're betting ahead, what's the health of everybody? Has Porzingis, like we didn't know if Porzingis was even going to come back. And then he comes back and he's still injured. So is he going to keep playing with it, or is this a new injury? Like, I don't know the transparency of that injury. That's what I would like. That's kind of why I like college, like for college football, the Big Ten, where they made it mandatory. Like they were making it like the NFL, where you had to put out your lineup card. And then when Harbaugh put out like his like random one where he just listing everybody as healthy and people made fun of him because they weren't like legit cards, but it's like, yeah, they didn't ask for that. We just want to know who's healthy and who's not. Like we kind of know who's going to play, right? If the guy's not going to play, we just need to know. Like there's a big difference. Like is Blake Corum going to play? Is he not? Questionable, like the Ohio State game where he came in, got the one carry, and you knew he looked bad. That's where you know if you bet on him, you were like, oh, I lost. He's not back. So, on basketball, real quick, I think I had it out of order in the timesheets or whatever. But Caitlin Clark, they did the WNBA. They've been attacking her. We talked about it. I don't really know much more to add other than I've started to see people pay attention to these NBA and WNBA press conferences, and they've been clipping them. I don't know if you've seen this, where some of the press conferences from the other players are just awful. Like you can tell they've never talked to the media ever. And they're just like complaining and walking out. And like some of them aren't even understanding the question. It's like, hey, what happened in the game? Blah, blah. And the guy's like, we're trying to rephrase questions and they have no idea what's going on. And they're like, this is what you guys are attacking Caitlin Clark for? Like, because she's better at the media? Like, they're like, the WNBA, I think the hashtag was something like, WNBA isn't prepared or something if you want to look it up. And then you can watch a bunch of these press conferences where they're to be honest, they're truthful. They're not ready for the spotlight of the NBA, but with the NBA bankrolling it or whatever, you would think that they would have some type of media. I mean, wasn't it Bull Durham where like a part of the movie was him teaching the pitcher how to like handle the media? Like that was in the 80s. They don't have a version of that for the WNBA this year, or in 2024, I mean. Because, like, what are you going to do? You have to talk to them. They're going to ask questions about your training, the game. And if you want to be in ads and on TV, then you got to get your face out there. Got to get your face out there. But they did say that she was snubbed from the Olympics because of her age, which seems weird. They did have stats to back it up, and I'm a big stats guy. So I have to say, maybe it does make sense. Usually the players are like 26 or older. Seems like an odd cutoff. But they were saying that by the next Olympics, they would probably invite her when she would be at that age range. What do you think of that?
I mean, for years, I feel like supporters of the WNBA have been like, take us seriously. And it's almost like I was trying to think of a decent comparison. And like, for someone that's going to promote your league and be a face of the league, like it would almost be like when LeBron James came out in the NBA and they're like, we don't want high school players coming out of high school, and then they just beat the crap out of them, like physically, emotionally, just destroy them. And like every opportunity to like interview them, put them on TV, just snub them, just like have other people from the NBA just gonna be like, no, we hate LeBron. Like that's essentially what they're doing to her. And you know, whether it kind of in line with some of our previous soapbox talk, like when you're trying to generate revenue and you have someone who's like clearly pulling more viewers in, why would you do anything that's going to take people away from what the contests are? Like I know, like for her personally, like she's had a rough start to the season. That people are trying. I'm seeing different outlets try to spin it and say, "Well, it's a good thing that she didn't make Team USA because now she's with not doing the Olympic practices and games. Now she has time to rest." And I thought, well, if you don't get the shit beat out of you over and over again, like. No one is running through and just crushing Tom Brady randomly. Like, if they breathe the wrong direction, it's a penalty. It's like you would think, protect your superstar player. Like, no other sport has it where, like, the NHL finals are going on. No one's going to the captain and just picking him up and throwing him onto the ice, like, head first. Oh, darn, sorry about that. You know hockey's a rough sport.
Well, that's what cracks me up, dude. They have these announcers that were, like, former WNBA players, saying that she's just not ready for the physicality. And that's why she got stumped by the Olympics. And they say it with like a smirk on their face. And you know, like they're just jealous. Like you can just see that they're just jealous about it. And it's like, what are you talking about? The physicality. And there's another one.
We're going to be physical now.
If you want to look another hashtag up, there's one that's like WNBA physicality. And it's just women wide open just putting up air balls, dude. Like the craziest, like the worst dribbling you've ever seen. It looked like middle school highlights, but they're like clear from WNBA. And honestly, I did watch a lot of those. highlights from that trend, and I will say, I have never seen NBA games players miss. I've seen guys like do air balls and stuff, but I've never seen guys like just dribble like repeatedly, like look awful with the ball in their hands, like they didn't know what they were doing. Like I watched it and thought I could play in this league. Well, in the NBA, you're like, if I could just stand there and shoot, maybe I could be in this game. But like, I'm clearly not driving to the hoop against these 7-foot tall giants, right? But the WNBA, I watched that highlight and I thought I could do that. I could easily go into the lane out of control and just whip up an air ball. Like,
my favorite comment was, he's already dressed in drag before. Caitlin Clark just needs an enforcer. Bring Dennis Rodman in. Just let him identify as a woman and just have him just absolutely destroy the WNBA.
How old is he? Could you imagine if he got hurt?
No. I could see him playing and just crushing everyone. It doesn't even matter.
Well, see, that's the one thing that I like. She's all about shooting and stuff. And even the WNBA, I've watched highlights of Caitlin Clark. She's not doing it in the WNBA yet. And I think it's just kind of a confidence thing. And maybe it is a little bit about her being tired, because none of the other women just played a college season, right? She played an entire college season and then went deep in the college playoffs and then immediately started, like, not like what, a month off? A month or two off? And then she's right back into the grind. Like, she has to be exhausted. So that's where I'm wondering, like, some of the guys, they stay in shape by, like, you switch. You have to have an off period where, like, you're doing pull workouts, I think is like what a lot of guys do, because then it takes the weight off your body and kind of lets you just ease back into it. But, like, she hasn't had that down period. And then she comes in and there's beating the crap out of her and giving cheap shots to her. How is your body supposed to rest from that? So the one thing that kind of stood out, though, they did pick that other girl from Stanford. I can't remember her name. I just think of the picture of her with Kevin Hart. And she's like so much taller than him. He's like a little manlet. They picked her for the Olympic team, though. And she's the same age as Caitlin Clark, I would think. Because they just both graduated from college. I think they did. I don't know. Maybe I don't have I should have a sheet of WNBA facts before we talk about it on the show. But they let her play on the 3 team. So they have 2 different basketball gold medals now, I guess, where you have a 3-on-3 and then a full women's team. So Caitlin Clark didn't make either team. So all the justifications they've given were just for the full team. Maybe she didn't try out for the 3-on-3, but I thought with her shooting, why wouldn't she just be a stud in 3-on-3 basketball? Right? I mean, with 3-on-3, you're just going to be getting your own shot, and she can shoot from wherever. So even if you just had some other giant underneath, like Brittany Griner, and you just threw it, like, she could either throw it up or just shoot crazy shots, that Brittany Griner's going to out-rebound whoever they put on her. And that's your 3-on-3 team. The other person can just be anybody in the WNBA, and that team would win the gold medal. But, like, they never said that she couldn't. All I saw was that they picked the Stanford girl instead. And I thought, maybe she's taller. I don't know. Maybe they just wanted the tallest people they could find. And they went with, we just need 3 super tall people to get all the rebounds. Less choice in a 3-on-3 game, I guess.
But honestly, it blows my mind that when you're on one hand, you have a group of people that are like, we need more exposure for the WNBA, and then they get it, and it's like, but don't give it to her. They give it to somebody else. And for as many interviews as, like, they're trying to have because of this extra exposure, nobody's running with it. Like, it just, the more I see, the more everyone's just coming off so terrible. Like, there's, like, no support. It's just like, I don't even know why you want to ask questions about her. It's like, have you watched any of the NBA interviews when people were just asking, like, I wonder what LeBron James ate for breakfast? Or, like, Tom Brady, when does he eat his snacks during the day? Like, they ask, like, the most random questions, And people just roll, like, those guys just roll with it. But it seems like with the WNBA coverage, the girls are just like, I hate her. I hope she doesn't eat anything ever again.
Well, see, I just looked it up, and the WNBA had the best ratings of all time in TV, and they attributed to Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, and then Cameron Brink, which is a Stanford girl I was talking about. But everyone knows that it's really just Caitlin Clark, right? They can say that the others are bringing in, but there's no articles about either of those other two, other than whenever they like are doing fouls on Caitlin Clark, right? They said that they sold out more than half their games. That's a lie. Capacity of what? Like, I've seen the highlights. The stadiums are still half empty. And I'm wondering if they're doing some Miami math here, where they're just like tarping off parts of the stadium. Because like I said, I saw that with the minor league where I went to the game and they closed the whole in like the other entrance that was on my side of the highway to where I came in. I'm like, I can't even go in there because they have it closed for the day. So the entire other side was closed. So when I took photos of like the game, it looked like the stadium was empty. But I'm like, they just decided to close that side of the stadium for whatever reason. So then when they do the attendance, do they take a count? And they're like, well, that was closed, so it was a sellout, technically. We better check it. Right? Because if they're having half the sellouts, I've seen the highlights. They're empty. It's like the Tar Heel football games or Miami Hurricanes games. They're half bleachers. So, and they're saying that like Clark's games have been playing at bigger arenas. Well, yeah, no crap. People are turning up to see her. So like whenever they're going to other venues. So now when she played in DC, they had to take her to the Washington Wizards Stadium where 20,000 people came to see her. They're not coming to see Angel Reese. Like seriously, or Cameron Brink. They're not. They're only coming to see Caitlin Clark. So that's what I'm like, kind of just, it's driving me crazy. Where merchandise sales are up, everything's up. And her team stinks. So people are going to see them in droves. And it's like, you get the chance to see her next year probably. I've never seen has there ever been like a basketball player get a career-ending injury? Even Paul George like just shattered his leg in that one Olympics trial. He came back. Right?
Yeah.
So that's where I think people are just, the hype is real right now. The numbers are like, they're talking about how awesome they are at 1 million. And it's like 1.32 million. If they're on TV, they're averaging 1 million people watching. But her Iowa games were like averaging 10 million people. So there's a gigantic drop off from college. So what are they going to do with that number? Like, is it going to go up higher? Because I would think it's still behind NBA. It would be funnier if her games were all bringing in better than NBA ratings. But it doesn't look like they broke it out like that. Because they really don't want to separate her, right?
But I mean, the thing is, it's like, you're not, when you're looking at the ratings, it's not like it's a fraction of a point, or like, it's like a 600,000 person difference. Like when she's playing versus anyone else.
Oh, I know. And that's where it's crazy, where they have these old players that like no one watched, and so they don't know even who they are, commentating on Caitlin Clark's struggles. It's like, what struggles? She's doing pretty good. They put her stats up against all the other rookies, and she was doing better. She won Rookie of the Month. So all you have to do is adjust to the game. By the end of the year, like, her team's not going to make a run at the playoffs. I did notice that they were doing the Commissioner Cup thing that the NBA did, where they put a random playoff game thing in the middle of the year. Didn't see that advertised anywhere, really. Just crazy. I don't think it's paying off. I don't know. The NHL is my other playoff thing that I wanted to talk about. And the only reason is I don't want Canada to win the cup. It's been since the 90s, and that's like their national sport. So at this point, Florida, I don't really care for your team, but please keep it going. Keep the cup in America, the greatest country. We don't want it to go to Canada. I mean, they're up 2-0, right? Oh, it's Thursday. I thought there was a game today. The thing, I knew their schedule was weird. I knew there wasn't a game today. But my pop-up said that there was a game tonight. They're up 2-0, just like the Celtics. Just don't blow it. Don't blow it. I thought the Oilers had a better team, but I'm happy to be wrong. And I am glad that Florida can just keep the cup in America a little bit longer. Because what does Canada have going for it? Nothing.
The 3 days that it's warm.
Everyone's always like, yeah, from Canada, love maple syrup, love hockey. And it's like, you guys haven't had a cup since like when I was a kid. I was probably a toddler at that time. I couldn't even read, bro. And every time, because I had a buddy that was like a Maple Leafs fan, so all you talk about, he's getting like super hyped, and it was just all heartbreak for him. And I enjoy it. We'll just say that I enjoy it. So I hope it keeps going. I watched a little bit of the game, and the Panthers seemed like their goalie was better, and I think that's the difference between the Canes and the Panthers. The goalie play is really what's stopping a cup run down here. And I don't know how you can catch up with that. It's almost like a Patrick Wall type dude can get you the cup randomly. That's what you need to find if you're a team. And Canada just can't find one. They have so many teams up there. They just can't win. Get close, but you always choke. It's better when they're not even in the cup, but being this close to the cup and then getting swept would be hilarious. So I'm cheering for the sweep. We'll check it next week. Hopefully it gets done. Hopefully they don't jinx it. Watching the Celtics game, I taught my daughter about the reverse jinx. So now she's always in the middle of the game like, we're going to lose, aren't we, Dad? And then she winks at me. And I'm like, that's not how it works. You're going to jinx yourself with the reverse jinx. But it makes me laugh. Because she's like, oh, the Celtics are going to lose, right, Dad? And knowing that it could work. So you can't mess with it. If you have the reverse jinx going, you got to go with it. And hopefully that your team can pull it off. Let's see. Anything else you want to talk about?
Our big news with the NFL.
Oh, Mike Tomlin, go ahead. What do you think about that?
So the Pittsburgh Steelers announced that there was going to be a 3-year extension for Mike Tomlin. And when we talk about the standard, we're obviously talking about the standard of mediocrity. I don't know. I mean, I can kind of see it just from the standpoint of, well, we're close enough to making the playoffs that maybe we just provide stability. And the only logical rationale that I can see them trying to make is if they're behind the scenes trying to make a trade with the 49ers because they're not having any success with their IU contract negotiation. And he's kind of come out and said he wants to go to Pittsburgh. So if that's part of the lore is that he's willing to do it, but he wants to play for Tomlin, that they're like, all right, well, we'll just sign him to a longer extension. And maybe that is one of those things that is a final piece for the Steelers because they've addressed a lot of the other areas of concern in the draft and with the quarterback situation that, I mean, for all we know, maybe that is the last piece. But when you look at the body of work over the last couple of years, I feel like how many other coaches are not getting that same benefit of the doubt? I feel like the Rooneys are just, they're consistent with, we're not gonna make moves. We're just going to allow things to naturally work itself out. And now we're at this stage where we have a new offensive coordinator coming in. If it doesn't pan out, they're really stuck between a rock and a hard place.
I think having a coach in place and the stability is good. The coordinators you can always replace. I think you can have a good CEO coach. What concerns me is some of the rumors about the locker room issues. Those aren't going to go away unless they kind of clean house. And I haven't seen anything from the Steelers that show me that they want to build back into a pure winning culture. Russell Wilson said he's been rejuvenized. Maybe he can kind of show them. Having a quarterback that's been successful and won a Super Bowl is a big deal. Ben had did that though, and he didn't really put forth his best effort to maintain that legacy or whatever with the team and the locker room aspect. I think the defense, some of the defensive guys really carried that, and over time that's kind of gone away. Maybe TJ Watt can keep that going and try to build that with Russell Wilson, and they can kind of get some accountability going. But you can't just sign a coach based on a trade for one player, even if it does look like he could be his son, and you're just like, come play for your dad. Maybe. I don't see, and it's not even like the Niners trade secrets are like behind closed doors, because they've been rumored for months now, and nothing's happened. And I've been on record saying, like, I don't think that's going to fix the team anyway. So at this point, I'm wondering, where do they go from here? With Tomlin, they're clearly going to give him an extension because they're going to make a run, I think, with Russell Wilson. With this move, you avoid the full rebuild. You have a quarterback, you have a backup quarterback in Fields, where even if Russell fades on the stretch or gets hurt, or like you have a Aaron Rodgers situation, like career season-ending injury, he doesn't even really play for you, you have another guy that you can kind of put in and give that second chance. And honestly, it just seems like the Steelers' quarterback position since Ben has just been like, let's pick a bunch of random guys that could work out. They don't want to develop their own guy. They don't want to do it in-house like Jordan Love and the Packers, like they did with Aaron Rodgers. The Steelers don't want to do that for whatever reason. It seems like they don't want to. Maybe Ben wasn't helpful back in the day. And so now they're kind of just like, we're going to take on these projects and see if it works. But it has to start from the top down. They don't have the winning culture right now to come in and have a plug-and-play quarterback scenario because they can't run the ball. Like, I want to see them be able to run consistently well, and they can't do it. Even some of the teams like the Titans, like they were able to consistently run the ball. They didn't really have a good quarterback. They had an above average guy, and they were able to win. Maybe not at the top level, but by God, run the ball in case it takes some pressure off your quarterback, because you're not going to find the next Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady without having some help on that offensive side of the ball. Tomlin doesn't change that. Tomlin's like a defensive guy, right? So he's going to just turn it over. Any other NFL stuff you want to hit on?
I don't think I had a whole lot of NFL stuff.
I did have one more thing with the UFL. I don't know if you watch any UFL playoffs. I didn't even realize at the time when they announced it. I said it was bad timing because the season was going to be ending around the NBA and NHL finals. But why you would line up your championship game during an NBA game So they had, I don't know, they were calling it the XFL or whatever. One was XFL, one was AFL or UFL. I don't know, remember what it was. But the one championship game was cut into the Celtics game. So, of course, I had it on with my dual TV setup, and I just started zoned in on the Celtics game, and I don't even remember the rest of the football game. And I thought that's a bad move by them, because maybe people aren't basketball fans, but I think the casual sports fan is more than likely going to tune into the NBA game, especially with all the gambling stuff that we talked about earlier in the show. Why you would have that line up at the same time is beyond idiotic. And even now, how are you going to get into the media headline with your league whenever NHL Stanley Cup's going on, the NBA Finals, and the WNBA with Caitlin Clark, which, of course, you didn't really know that whenever you were starting the season, right? But it could have all been avoided had they started the season 2 weeks earlier, right? Why couldn't you have the championship game on Memorial Day? That's a built-in holiday, bro.
Yeah.
Or Sunday before. Like, do something to stand out. Like, why you had to line up exactly with the only other two sports on right now, it couldn't be good for ratings. I don't know if they came out. I'll look real quick.
But and the other part to that is that it's similar to last year's XFL final where you had the Renegades come through and had a big playoff push with a lower record. San Antonio did essentially the same thing. They started the year off rough and just caught the hot streak at the right time, and now they're in a position to make a move for the championship.
And I mean the first game too, the Michigan Panthers were up on Saturday. I watched that game. And then Birmingham kind of just put it together and they took care of business. The team that I thought was like by far the best team in the entire league. They almost got bounced in the first round of the play. Or I guess there's only one round. But they almost got bounced in the playoffs, which would have been insane. And so that's something that like you'd think that they would have been able to highlight. But I think, was that game up against the Stanley Cup too? Or no, it might have been a little bit earlier. Because I thought that they were both, it just seemed odd that it's like, why are you not highlighting these more and trying to get better TV ratings? And I can't even really find the TV ratings. They're probably not out yet for the playoffs. But through the entire regular season so far, they were better than USFL and XFL ratings combined. 31% overall increase, which is a good increase. Not quite to 1 million viewers, which is what the WNBA is saying they're getting. And I think that's kind of like the barometer right here. You have a small league. You should be able to beat the WNBA. But even if you don't, I would think that they would have another season. If I was just a TV guys, I would say, like, why can't we just shift this a little bit and make it a premier thing? Because then you could have the UFL championship, then the NBA and the NHL championships right after each other. It'd be nice. You have the NFL draft, UFL championship, then you have your other sports. Like, why try to shove it in there? It's kind of like when the Big Three basketball thing that they were talking about, what they offered Caitlin Clark, but like their schedule lines up with like the NFL playoffs. That's DOA. That's dead on arrival. There's no way people are going to be watching that over the NFL playoffs or even college football playoffs now that schedule came out. So, just crazy. We'll probably talk about the college football playoff later. We get closer to the season. I'm not going to talk about it this early yet. Because we saw that the schedule came out. They put the home playoff game. So, like, if your team is the same as before, we've talked about it. If you're a conference champ, you'll get one of the 4 byes. And then you're going to play in the traditional bowl game. So think of like Michigan last year. Win the Big Ten. They went to the Rose Bowl where they played Alabama. The only difference would be Alabama and Florida State. Oh, I guess Florida State probably would have been Or no, Alabama did win the SEC, right? So they wouldn't have been playing each other. They're just going to be an extra round where there would be like a play-in game first to see who would play Michigan, which could be a disadvantage, I would think, right? Because if you play an extra game and your team stays fresh, there were a lot of mistakes in that Rose Bowl between Alabama and Michigan on both sides. So that long layoff definitely hurt both teams. Now, if they were playing another team that didn't have a layoff, will that impact it? Because that's my only concern, and that's why I always said, like, don't put buys in there. Because how many conference champs are going to get upset because their team's coming in rusty after a month layoff, right? But we'll see. The schedule came out. I think it's all in like later December. I don't think I've seen anything on the other bowl game schedule, but most of the times I think were just what we expected. The Rose Bowl, Orange Bowl, the Sugar Bowl maybe, and then Fiesta Bowl. I don't know what the 4 bowls were. But those are going to be your conference champs get directly into those bowls, I think. And then they're just like kind of stretching it out. Although maybe the Rose Bowl is the semifinal game then. I don't know. But there's like a 3-week layoff, I think, for the teams that win their conference compared to the other teams only are off a week or 2. So they will be fresher. We'll just have to wait and see how far. But I think that's all I have for today's show. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we wrap up?
Just want to see the Noles finally get over the hump with college baseball. We made it back to Omaha, and hoping that they get this win Friday, open up with Tennessee, and just get things going. Finally get over the hump and cross the Rubicon.
You didn't see the news. They told Florida they're going to get replaced. They're going to replace Florida State with an SEC team. They think they're just going to put Alabama in to make it fair. Right? Because Nick Saban retired. I will say, I've been watching NC State because NC State got ripped off during COVID, dude. I know we talked about it back when it happened, but they said that they tested positive, so they made the whole team forfeit. Like it was that kind of crap. Whenever like half team was vaccinated or something, they made them play with a lesser amount of people on their team, so only the vaccinated people could play. They thought they were going to lose, right? Like, let's be honest. The NCAA, when they made that ruling, they thought NC State's losing this game. They win the game, and then they said, "Oh, actually, we're just going to make you guys forfeit, and you lost." It was almost like the Jim Harbaugh thing, where they're like, "We're going to suspend Jim Harbaugh 3 games," and they're like, "Michigan's sure to lose this week," and then the next week they're like, "Well, they're not going to beat Ohio State, or they're not going to beat Maryland or whatever." Then they're not going to beat Ohio State, and then they kept winning, and then they're like the commissioner of the NCAA or whatever, he's like, "Yeah, I guess Michigan won fair and square. We tried to trip them up, guys. We did our best." But with NC State, they were like, "We're going to trip you up, and then we're also going to make you forfeit if you do win, because we can't have a team of sickness out here playing."
Well, you know, when I looked at the baseball brackets, and I thought this is where like some of my frustrations with football come in, because when you look at how they did like some of the selections, like you had 11 SEC teams enter the College World Series playoffs. 4 made it to Omaha. Comparatively, you had 8 ACC teams make the playoffs and 4 made it to Omaha. So, I mean, you had a 50% ratio of the teams advancing from the ACC with fewer people getting in. It's like if you inflate those numbers, like you're getting more opportunity to make it onto that bigger stage. And all it takes is one team to get lucky at the right time, and there's another feather in your conference cap. But it's like, once again, ACC just getting kicked to the curb as a lesser quality conference. It's like just more ammunition in the Florida State get out of the ACC.
Well, that's where I was like, I really wanted Michigan to win the championship. They made it there a couple years ago. and they just couldn't get it done. I think they lost 1 or 2 games to 1 in the final against Vanderbilt. And they brought up multiple times during the game. And I'm like, that should just help Michigan's recruiting this year. I don't remember if they got in or not. I don't think they got into the tournament, but it's the same thing. Like, they were close in the Big Ten. And it's like, well, you should win the Big Ten then and then get in. It's like, well, Nebraska got in. They couldn't get through. But it's like the Big Ten only has like 2 or 3 teams to get in. That's why I want them to expand and get Florida State in them. Because some of these other sports, that's a moneymaker for the Big Ten Network or Peacock or whatever you put it on. Baseball right now is on. Otherwise, it wouldn't be on everywhere. But to your point, like NC State gets ripped off again. They have to go to Georgia. And then they crush them the first game. And even the announcer, they didn't even talk about the blowout the first game. They were like, they pretended like NC State just snuck by them. And they're like, well, Georgia got things right the second game, beat them 10-2. They kept saying 10-2. The first game was like 18-1. It was a beatdown, and then NC State's bat came back alive in the third game and crushed them. And the entire talk was like, could we have like 8 SEC teams in here? And I'm like, guys, the entire thing is like SEC teams. What are you talking about? They should be in here. And then when the ACC split, they were like, you could tell that the announcers were visibly shaken. I don't know who they were, but the guy was like stumbling around his words like about the ACC, and they did bring up how NC State got ripped off during the COVID. And I said like NC State should put up a banner like didn't lose in the World Series, because they didn't. They were made to forfeit. Like they try to get them out. They're like, we're gonna get you. You guys are gonna lose. Play with 14 dudes, see what happens. And they even talked about it during the game. I guess like one of the pitchers ended up having a couple hits. He never even batted. And they're like, you need to hit play today. And like that's how NC State was winning that year. Like they could have been the team of destiny, and they didn't have a chance. So I'm glad that they're back. I'm hoping Florida State can make some noise, and then that makes them even more attractive to the Big Ten. But like if the Big Ten's going to grab a bunch of teams, I think North Carolina made it too. Grab a couple of ACC teams. Just make a merger with whatever to get to whatever number you want. They're 18? Go to 24. Grab Notre Dame too. We need to grab Notre Dame, because that will kill all the SEC hype. Then just grab the best 8 SEC schools and then just make it a 32-team conference, and that's it. Wrap it up. You have one best conference called the Big. You could turn that into like the best somehow. They fit a 10 and then an 11 in that logo. They could find a way to spell out best. I'll send him some mock-ups. Make sure it's like a bunch of crazy things, but that's what I do. I do like watching baseball. I do like watching like the softball. I think Oklahoma ended up winning it, right? For like their 4 in a row. But that's kind of where I've been going with the NIL. You get a team like Oklahoma or like Penn State Wrestling where there's not a lot of resources, right? Or Iowa Wrestling. 2 teams, 2 programs that are at the top fighting for the best guys. How's another team supposed, like you're going to get a team that one-off wins, like you said, to get hot in the sport? But most of the time when you have these legacy sports where like women's softball, there's only so many top players. And if they all decide to go to Oklahoma, they're going to win. They're going to win the title.
Mention that it's consistently played in Oklahoma, so not like just playing in front of your hometown fans and making it more difficult for any other school to.
Hey, I remember when Nebraska came in, they kept talking about that in the Big Ten. Just wait. That's a hometown NCAA tournament. And then Michigan made the championship game, and Nebraska hasn't won shit there. So that's what's funny that you brought that up. But that's what it's like. Ohio State can build a football team, buy them, keep having like the best recruits for decades. They've only won 2 titles in my lifetime. Like, they're not winning every year. But these other sports, because of the lower talent pool, you're able to just create a dynasty. And that's where I would want to see, like with the Big Ten money coming in, I want Michigan to just, if you're going to be consistently finishing like second or third in a couple of sports, just go full dynasty mode. Go full dynasty mode in a couple different sports and then just be like, that's our thing now. We don't care about you other schools. We can NIL it up in here. But if they want it to be football, then I'm all for that too. Make it football and basketball, and that's awesome. Seems like the way they're going. They're like, we don't care about the other sports anymore. We just want football national championships. And I don't blame them, dude. Don't blame them. That gets the most talked about. You're not going to find a lot of random people that are mad about like a team winning baseball. But bro, where Michigan stuff around now as the national champs, and people still just give you head shakes. Like they know who the top dog is. Maybe Florida State can come to the Big Ten and they can get to the big boys table. Then they're sitting off on the side at the Orange Bowl press conference, right? Is that where they went? I can't remember the Bulls. Anything else you want to talk about?
No, that's it.
I thought I had one more thing pop up since you said that. Oh, so I was at NC State. Did you see NC State's, this is my final bill. Did you see NC State's 1983 basketball team is suing the NCAA over NIL? How? Why? Are you trying to get sanctions on NC State again? Like, how bad do you hate? I get it. I get the fact that you were in the highlight, and they always show it, right? The Jimmy V, they showed the last minute dunk, but bro, celebrate it. They're not selling merchandise with you. Like they're not selling that highlight on a t-shirt. I've never seen it around NC State campus, at least. Like I've never seen anyone wearing anything with any of those dudes. Maybe like some old retro shirts, but those guys could really talk to the university, and they could have been selling those anyway, because guess what? They're not athletes anymore. They're grown men. They're grown men. They can do whatever the hell they want. Michael Jordan has a bunch of gear floating around. They gladly invite him back to North Carolina. Like NC State, they got to realize like their legacy, if they get that highlight taken off, their legacy dies. Their legacy is dead. If they take this lawsuit and it gets picked up, the NCAA can't show that highlight anymore. Everyone forgets about them. NC State becomes a team of like, were they ever good? Right now, they're always constantly showing the highlights, kind of like Desmond's highlight, like Michigan Heisman thing. People think Michigan has like a ton of Heismans. They really don't compared to other schools. But because every time they show a highlight, it's Desmond Howard striking the Heisman pose, that sells to recruits. That's how you're able to go. If you get your school taken off, you're done. You're the forgotten man. Like they're going to just find another highlight from new guys that already signed the NIL stuff, and they're going to put them in. Right? That's my final bell. I think it's a poor move, and I think it's going to hurt NC State, and I hate to see it. So, if you disagree, let me know. Anything you want us to talk about, again, let us know. Very thankful for the support and picking up great steam in terms of downloads. So keep that going. Tell your friends, and we will see you next week.